On today's show, we're going to start out in Israel, in Jerusalem. Then we're going to Washington, D.C. From Washington, D.C., we're going to Kurdistan. We're going to take a look at very complex, very confusing for most Westerners, group of people, the Kurds, who they are, what they want, what's going on, what the United States' role should be in the life of these fascinating people that are on the front lines as we speak today in the city of Kobani, fighting for their lives, for the West in a very real sense. Hi, Tom Trento here on the 20th. Do you believe it's November 20th already?
Yeah, it's almost Thanksgiving.
Amazing. 6 minutes after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, WSBR. WSBR, 7:40 a.m. on the dial, 4 o'clock, 6 minutes after. We hope you're also watching on theunitedwest.org, or if you're watching on teapartycommunity.com, Tea Party Community, fascinating social media website for conservatives where you don't get flagged or censored like the leftist Facebook folks do. So go over to Tea Party Community. Be on both of them. It's very, very good. And a lot of things going on. We want to go directly to Jerusalem to get a report on the tension on the ground, the activities on the ground in light of the slaughter, folks, of the Orthodox Jews who were praying in the synagogue in Western Jerusalem a couple of days ago. Ramifications of that around the state, what Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, is doing. So let's go directly to our correspondent on the ground, Jerusalem Jane. There you are.
Hello. Hi. Hi, Tom. Hey, guys.
How you doing? How you doing?
Shalom.
Hi. Good to see you. Good to see you.
That name's catching on for her now.
What, Jerusalem Jane?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
She's gonna shorten it and call it. She's gonna shorten it, call it JJ.
JJ. You know, the world is
Thank
so.
you for giving me a cool name.
That's okay, Jerusalem Jane. I mean, the world is. Here's something we do at the United West. We deal obviously day in and day out with extremely heavy, serious, complex, sad issues for the most part. And you got to learn to laugh a little bit when you can, or you will go nuts.
You will.
So it's nice to have met you out there. We're going to meet you again when we're there in March for our tour, our fact-finding mission, March 21st, 2015. You got to come, ladies and gentlemen. Jerusalem is the center of the galaxy, right, Jerusalem Jane?
That's right.
Absolutely. And I want to meet them, so come.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about the aftermath of the slaughter that took place by the Jamal cousins just a couple of days ago.
Well, the best way to describe it is actually to tell you a little bit about my day today, because I went to Mamilla Mall because I'm your correspondent now, so I got a new smartphone that I needed to get a plan on.
Oh,
cool.
All right.
Well,
Pretty
the video
cool.
quality is improved too. So.
Send Mark the bill.
So no, but anyway, there's a really nice guy helping me, and I'm telling him I need to have this iPhone working because what I'm doing here. And he looks at me and he was like, "Really? Are you serious? We need people like you." And then he's pulling out two other guys who works in the store, and he starts telling about me and who I am. So one of the other guys is saying, "Did you see what the other were broadcasting? Did you see what CNN was saying? We need good people to speak up for us." And they gave me all these nice things because I was so pro-Israel. When I left the store, Tom, and I met 4 Israeli soldiers, 4 girls, and they stopped an Arab man walking in front of me, stopping him, asking him for his ID, asking him a lot of questions, and I could see one of them was calling on her radio to check on this guy. And I have never seen this before, just walking in Mamilla Mall, and this is showing how intensified things are here, how security is being, after the attacks you just talked about, how Jerusalem is really, it's tension here. It's really building up. But I feel secure and I feel safe, and as the Jewish people are feeling safe because the IDF are doing a good job.
All right, now the 4 female IDF soldiers that you saw in front of you, this is in the western part of Jerusalem?
Yeah, it's just by Jaffa Gate. The Mamilla Mall is just under Jaffa Gate. I actually left from there, and I went to the Temple Mount because I was going to be on your show today. So I wanted to be able to see I was on the Temple Mount today. There were Israeli police. They were present all the exits or the entrance to the Temple Mount. There were police all over today checking people. So it's heating up here, but they are doing a good job.
All right, well, let me ask you this, because we are putting this fact-finding mission together, small group, 30, 40 people, and the folks that are coming are serious Zionist activists, and they all lead groups in some sense. So, but there are a few folks that are a little concerned. They're emailing me saying, hey, we're getting concerned about what's going on there. Now, when you went up to the Temple Mount, just walk us through, take a moment or two and walk us through what that means and how you get up there and what you do once you're up there.
Well, the entrance to the Temple Mount is actually where you go into the Western Wall. There are two lines, and the one on the right is going up to the Temple Mount. And you stand in a line and you go up and they check your passport. They ask where you're from, they check your passport, they check your bag. If you have a Bible, you're not allowed to bring it. If you have any religious artifact, you have to leave it because only Muslims are allowed to bring that when they go up there. And you go through a metal detector, and these guys are really nice. So when you go through security, you go up the long ramp. If people have been at the Western Wall, they see this long ramp. And you go up the ramp, and today there was a lot of Israeli police there, really with the big vest, the tough guys. When you enter the Temple Mount, you have, for the ladies' part, someone coming up saying, cover this, cover this. You can't wear shorts. If you're a guy, seriously, you have to cover your legs. And then you go up, and they have a lot of women up there, and they have a lot of men up there, and of course they are separated. And I'm going to say something now, and I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble or if it's true or not, but I actually believe that every time tourists are going to the Temple Mount, they are putting on a show. They are putting on this big show because they are sitting up there, and women are being taught and men are being taught, and I actually made a video I'm going to share with you today. They are sitting up there being taught about the Quran, about Islam. And then when Jewish people are coming, they're starting Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. I have only been on the afternoon, and that's 1 hour. And as soon as that hour is coming to an end and they start to call us down, everybody gets up. They take their chairs, they take their books, they take their Quran, and they go home. So I'm thinking, what are they doing when we are not there? Because this is a show. The 1 hour we are there, they sit doing this. Looks like, oh, we're good people studying the Quran. And then when we leave, they leave. So I don't know what's going on. But I want to say, I have been there 5-6 times now, and you're safe on the Temple Mount. Today there were some big, muscular IDF policemen up there, and if something happens, they're going to come to your rescue. So don't be afraid to go to the Temple Mount.
And she really hates the big, muscular IDF men, I'm sure. I know. It's really...
Hey.
Let me just tell you...
Did any of them give you their card? And for the folks listening, at 14 minutes after 4 o'clock, WSBR Radio, 740 AM, Tom Trento, your host here. We're talking with Jerusalem Jane, giving us a live report. It's like 11 o'clock, 7 hours difference for her right now. She went up to the Temple Mount today. And for those of you who haven't been there, you go up because it's Mount Moriah, where the temple was built. So it's elevated. And it's several football fields big.
It's huge.
Huge.
If you're standing looking at the Western Wall, which is the western part of the old city, to the right is Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's the mosque. The big gold thing, the dome, this thing right here, where is it? This little guy right here with the dome, that's not a mosque. This was built in 691 after Islam conquered Jerusalem. And it was built right over the Jewish temple, simply for the Muslims to say, we are better than the Jews.
Yep.
And they built a fancy edifice, just a fancy building, to say, we're better than Christian architecture also.
Yes, Islamic supremacism at its very best.
Yes.
And it's one of the third most holiest Islamic state. That's a bunch of BS. It is.
Well, there's a fascinating story with the night ride of Muhammad coming here. It was interesting. Muhammad came not to see this, because this was built in 691. He died in 530. He was 50 years old, born in 570. He died in like 640.
If
or
he
so.
actually ever existed. Well,
If he existed. But this was built, 100 years after him. So he couldn't see this. It wasn't built. So they said he went to the farthest mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque, which wasn't there either. It wasn't built at the time that he was there. So the whole thing is phony baloney, but this is the perception now. All right, Jerusalem Jane, you said you had a video. You're going to send it to us for tomorrow. We can show it?
I will.
All right, let's do that. What is the video about?
Well, I made a video because there was this Muslim guy smacked down on his face praying, and I had these 7 or 8 Israeli soldiers just looking at him, trying to keep things calm. And for me, it was just such a funny picture of those two things meeting. So I just made a small video about that and just showed it was peaceful up there today. But can I quickly just say one thing?
Sure, yeah.
Tom, when I left and went out of the exit, you go into the Muslim area. And there was and I posted that today on Israel One Nation, there was a huge Jewish family standing looking into the entrance to the Temple Mount. And one of the guys is saying, can you see this is the holiest of the holiest place for us, and we cannot even go there. 200 meters up there is the holiest of holiest, and we cannot even go there. And my heart was just like, this is so wrong, this is so wrong. So they took out their cameras and they were taking pictures like so close and yet so far away.
Man, you introduced a subject that we can talk about for hours, the absurdity and irony of the Holy of Holies, the number one holy place, but Jews aren't allowed up there. Or when they are allowed, it's extremely restricted and they cannot pray. They can't even move their lips.
Don't even pretend to pray.
And this is the religion of peace that accommodates the people of the book. It's a bunch of nonsense.
You know the beauty of as this is going on in the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., you have Muslim preachers calling for the destruction of Jews and Christians in America, as Jews can't even pray in their holiest of holies in Israel. It's amazing.
We need a 911 for Western civilization. Oh wait, that's us. We're the 911 for Western civilization.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerusalem Jane, stay safe there, and we will take a look at your video. And tomorrow for us is Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday. I don't know if you know about that yet.
She doesn't know about Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday.
It's the best day of the week.
We celebrate the religion of peace's day of peace. But we'll let you know. We may want to get in touch with you tomorrow. And if anything occurs where you need to get...
And you need to talk, Tom, you need to talk about all the weapons they found here in Israel today. Did you read about that? The big shipment with weapons coming from China, 18,000 fireworks, 5,200 commando knives, 5,500 theses, 1,000 swords going into Jerusalem to all the Muslims who wanted to...
You know what? That's going to be a perfect topic for Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday.
That sounds like the swap shop on Sunrise Boulevard.
All right, Jerusalem Jane, thank you very, very much. Go get some sleep, and we'll see you very shortly.
Shalom, you wonderful shiksa, you.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jerusalem Jane at 19 minutes after 4 o'clock. On a improving Friday.
Yes.
We don't do the weather or any of that stuff on this show here. I guess we could. Damon, why don't you
it's cold.
Why don't you do the weather?
It is a little cooler than normal, a little dreary, but sun might be breaking through.
It's
Mark,
freezing then.
Why don't you do the traffic? We're a radio show.
There's cars on the road.
Cars on the road. Weather out there.
There's cars on the road.
Time to go to Kurdistan. That's where we need to go to.
That's where we're going, Kurdistan.
We have been doing a lot of work on national security issues, as you know.
Right.
We run the organization, the United West. And for our new listeners and viewers, the United West is an educational counterterrorism organization. We try to educate the West about terrorism issues and counter the terrorism that's going on through the information battle space of media, social media, communications, so that we don't have to ever escalate this to armed combat, as is occurring other places. We want to defeat our ideological enemies, in particular Islamic Jihad, before it escalates to that tipping point here in the U.S. So we take a look at the world and we say, okay, we got a little problem over here with a particular terrorism group, a little problem over here with a terrorism group, a little problem over here, and they all happen to be connected somehow with Islam for the most part.
Funny how that happens.
Though it's very ironic when you watch some of these television shows that deal with terrorism, and
They're what? Yeah.
they're developing, the narrative of terror, and then they have some Nazi group or some white Aryan supremacist group that
Well,
nobody
it has
knows
to.
anything about or cares about, and they're the big bad terrorists, not the big elephant in the room.
Not these guys.
Not
yeah.
those guys,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just like, oh no, we don't want
So
to
we're
talk
going
about
to
it.
work. We're going to interview an expert today, someone in the middle of all of this. And do we have him yet?
Trying.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had him a minute ago.
We had him a minute ago, and we have a special guest for you that's going to be coming on, Dr.
Oh, you put him up? Okay.
No,
he here?
No, I
Okay.
don't have
No,
him
no,
on,
no.
but I do have a picture of him. I was going to tell Mark to
Oh.
put up while we're trying to get him.
All right, let's put his picture up. I'll talk a little bit about him because he is just a fascinating guy for sure. There he
Right.
is, Dr. Sherkoh Abbas, and he heads up the Kurdistan National Assembly.
You know what, Tom? We do have that video in D.C. that we did with the Solidarity
All right, we'll
Movement.
bring that in a minute. He heads up the Kurdistan National Assembly, the Syria component of it, because we're going to talk about the Kurds. When you hear Kurds, people say, "Oh, and ways, Kurds and ways," whatever that is. What is that? Milk and
Whatever.
whatever it is, English stuff. It's very, very confusing, and I think we're going to hit the street, Damon. We'll have you and a couple of the guys go out, interview people, and ask about the Kurds, Kurdistan, the Kurdish religion, the Kurdish nationality. I think we're going to come up with a lot of ignorance as to who the Kurds are, what they're all about. There are between 30 and 50 million Kurds in the world.
Which is twice as many as Jews in the world.
On the low end, could be 3 times as many. If there's 50 million Kurds, there's more than 3 times as many Jews in the world. They're the largest group of identified people that have a nationality, a customs, particular types of food, particular bloodlines, all this. The largest group of people without their own state right now in the world. And people have been arguing, Westerners and Easterners, many people have been arguing that this group of people needs some sort of identification as a nation in and of themselves. And part of the problem that occurred is, if you remember, the great colonizers of the world were the British and the French, 2 of the great colonizers. Yes. And again, they were very sophisticated, educated, advanced cultures and societies. They simply went out to conquer and explore new lands and bring the customs of the French and the British to those places. And notwithstanding the abuses, there's tremendous benefits that occurred through colonization, one of which is the United States of America was a colony of Britain.
Yes.
And a lot of our laws and our customs come out of that. At some point, we said we need independence from Britain because you're now going too far. And we fought that battle. And battles were fought, and particularly after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire fell, for 600 years or so, the Muslims controlled a good portion of the world, particularly in the Middle East and the African area, for 600 years. That fell, that ended. The caliphate out of Istanbul, the Ottoman family, the caliphs in the Ottoman family, that whole Islamic movement fell at the end of the First World War, and the victors were the British and the French, and they said, okay, we have your land now. Let's get out our knife. We're going to cut up the territory, and we're going to tell you what the states are. And after World War I, the British and the French start cutting up various states, and they formed some of these bizarre states that really had no indigenous metrics to determine whether or not they can be successful. I spent a day with Dr. Mordecai Kedar last week, traveling around northern Israel. And he argues very effectively that states have to be built on culture, on similar beliefs. And after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire fell and the French and the British cut up the states, they made Iraq, which really has three different sections to it. Iraq was a sort of a favor to the British. Lebanon was a nod to the Christians from the French. The French had influence there. And we're going to get into all of this with our special guest, who is with us right now. We'd like to introduce. He's on the phone. He's not on Skype.
Well, the snow has a little something to do with that.
Oh, you're not on the mic. What is the problem?
I said the snow has a little something to do with why he's on the phone instead of Skype, but I believe we have Dr. Sherkoh Abbas with us.
Hello, gentlemen. Sorry, I had a power on and off this morning several times. I'm in Michigan right now. Just apparently too much snow has been affecting our power.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, we're immune from snow, I think, down here right now. And it's really funny, Dr. Abbas. I lived in New Jersey. I lived in Chicago. I lived in Denver. I froze to death for half of my life, moved to Florida, and we don't even think about, the cold and the electricity going out, any of that. So our sympathies are with you, but more importantly, our questions are with you regarding who you are and what you want. There's a great deal of confusion about the Kurds, Kurdistan, these issues, even with educated people in the world today. So what we'd like to do with the few moments we have with you today, and we'd like to have you back several times because you're fulfilling a critically important piece of the national security Western apparatus.
Definitely.
We want to sit at your feet and have this be a primer, a lesson on who the Kurds are, what they want, why they want that, and why that's important to the West and to the United States in particular. Can you do that with us for a few moments?
Sure. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and sorry for not being able to come via the Skype.
Well, it was actually a beautiful picture last time.
But nevertheless, the Kurds are 40 million strong Indo-European ethnic group, are not Arab or not Persian or not Turks. They live in what is known modern-day Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and that area is called Kurdistan. And it's Kurds mostly Muslim, but we have Kurdish Jews, Kurdish Christian, Yazidis, and there is a tolerance among the Kurds. There's basically share the same value as American Western values. They are friendly with American people and Western people and American allies, including Israel. So in essence, they have the same value as Western nations do. And today we're fighting on the behalf of the Western nation against ISIS and the radical Islamist group in the Middle East, and trying to survive without the help of the international community. Unfortunately, we hear from Washington that they're helping us, but they are not really helping us. So the Kurds really, from the Kurds of Syria, in most of them moderate. There's a tolerance. There is no issues, and you can go back to Cyrus the Great. He was a Kurd. To Salahuddin, when he actually allowed the Jews to come in masses to Jerusalem and have Christian and Muslim and Jewish first time ever together in a joint operation, joining or leading the government on Jerusalem at the time. So I don't know what else you want me to start.
What we'll do, we're going to piece it together. We have a radio audience in South Florida that goes from Miami up to Palm Beach, probably a 70 or 80 mile area, and from the ocean west to the Everglades. So we have a lot of people listening, and we broadcast on internet TV. We broadcast pieces of our show on Breitbart TV. So for our audience, we want to establish the fact that there's an ethnicity. There's a group of people who can identify themselves as Kurds going back thousands of years, and they've been distributed essentially over sections of Turkey, and Syria and Iraq and Iran. That broad sort of arc through those areas in the Middle East. Now, what would, if you were walking down the street in Phoenix, Arizona, could you identify a Kurdish person in just by the way they look and dress, and could you distinguish someone? Someone who's a Kurd?
I mean, yes and no. If you go to an area isolated, which is similar to Colorado climate, the mountain Kurdish regions, you'll find the people that they were less influenced by Islam or Arab invasions or Islamic invasion of the Kurdistan. You'll find them pretty much more Western folks, blue eyes, blonde hair. This is the people who are more of a pure Kurdish. And over the years, obviously, from Islamic era and until modern day, there's been some issues of changes. You can see darker skin as well. But in essence, yeah, we can tell the Kurds, some area and some you can't. But overall, they're completely different. They're not Arab, they're not Turks, they're not Persian. And to elaborate a little bit more, Turkey is the largest Kurdish ethnic group in Turkey and also in the area. The second, Iran; third, Iraq; fourth is Syria. And we're at least 4.5 million Kurds live in Syria.
In Syria. I'm trying to establish at 32 minutes after 4 o'clock on WSBR AM radio, Tom Trento here, your host, with Dr. Sherkoh Abbas. He is the head of the Kurdistan National Assembly, the Syrian component of that, trying to establish for our audience the fact that the Kurds who are fighting right now, we're going to get to this in a moment, fighting right now in the city of Kobani in Syria, fighting for their lives, fighting for the West in a very real sense, are a group of human beings, regular people that have families. And we've heard so much historically or in the media, the abuses of Saddam Hussein and after the first Gulf War, all of this. But there's a unique group of people, 40 million, called Kurds, and they are right now, is it true, Dr. Abbas, that the Kurds are the largest group of identified ethnic people who do not have their own nation state? Is that true?
That's correct. 40 million stronghold, but they've been there for more than 4,000 years. We're descendant of Medians, and this is it's really sad that the international community does not pay attention to the Kurdish cause, and maybe because we don't blow buildings, we don't hijack airplanes, we don't kill people at Olympics and other places, and we don't do these heinous crimes that cutting people's head. Maybe that's why we're not getting attention. I don't know, but we've been for more than a century trying to establish our nation, and unfortunately the Arab nations and Turks and Persian, they were able to somehow blend their interests with interest of British and French at the time, and to this day they maintain that as well.
All right. Well, we're establishing critically, and it's critically important, that this group of people dispersed over 4 or 5 different countries for the most part. But if you look in any sort of demographic information, I mean, we were looking today, Damon. How many Kurds in Israel? 150,000.
150,000 Kurds in Israel alone. I thought that was
That's amazing.
What is that all about? 150. What is that?
In fact, I was told by some folks that are even close to as much as 300,000.
300,000. Now, what are Kurds doing in Israel? What's that all about?
Well, they're Kurdish Jews. They're Kurdish Jews. As I mentioned to you before, the Kurds are not just Muslim, and they always had. And you can ask the Kurdish Jews in Israel. You have been there recently, or you can ask anybody. What was their memory of the Kurdish Muslim, Kurdish Christian, Kurdish Jews, or Yazidi? I bet you none of them will tell you anything negative. They never had this issue of discrimination. You're a Christian, you're a Jewish, or you're a Yazidi. They're basically just Kurds. We identify as Kurds first.
All right, now this is a very important point, Dr. Abbas. We at 36 minutes after 4 o'clock, we just found out there's up to 300, and this is a lot of people in a tiny little country of Israel, 300,000 Kurdish Jews. Now, typically, when you think of the Kurds, and the majority are Muslims, Sunni Muslim, and I believe even Shafi Sunni Muslims, which is a pretty rigorous group within the Sunni world of Islam. And we do a lot of work here at the United West on the particular elements of Sunni Islam, even Shia Islam. And the important question for you is, what is dominant in the Kurds' life? Is it the religion of Islam or the nationalism of Kurdistan?
If you ask the Kurds, the Islam, it's more like between them and their God, or religions between them and their God. The priority is number one ethnicity, that they're a Kurd. So this is one thing. And historically, Kurds been very good in promoting democracy. Like Cyrus the Great, he is a Kurd, and even in Torah talks about Cyrus the Great. But obviously, Persian people who won, they always rewrite the history the way they want it. But he was a Kurd, Cyrus, and he freed the Jews. And again, when you look at in Iraqi Kurdistan, the first rabbi woman was a Kurdish woman. So in all out the history, the men and women been working, different religions been living and coexisting, even in their marriages, and that is the way. I think this is one thing that most of those nations in the Middle East fear this. They don't want this next door.
All right, and what you're saying, the Kurdistan, we'll use the term Kurdistan technically right now for encompassing all Kurds in the Middle Eastern area, from Turkey going all the way over to Iran. Is that technically accurate?
That's what it is, Kurdistan, and we are the Kurds. Kurdistan means land of the Kurd, and that's about the size of France or Texas, but for sure it's about the size of France.
Okay. Let's get your background a little bit and get the folks who are listening on WSBR AM radio, 740 on the dial, or watching on the UnitedWest.org, or watching on TeaPartyCommunity.com. Let's get them up to speed as to who you are and what you're doing here in the United States. Now that we know there's this group of 40 million people out there that are very Western, even though they may be Muslims or Christians or Jews, and they're standing at the brink of history right now, possibly moving in a very positive way, or a way that could be very detrimental to their existence. Who are you, Dr. Abbas, and what do you want?
Well, I am chairman of the Kurdistan National Assembly, an umbrella organization for the Syrian Kurds, political parties, NGOs, civic organizations. We're promoting, at the very least, federalism in Syria for the Kurds of Syria, if not outright independent Kurdistan, because as you can see, Syria, Iraq, according to Kissinger and many other folks, they're a failed state. And as you can see, they were built, I think at least I heard what you said a few minutes ago, that Iraq has a three-component. So you have Shiite, Kurds, and Sunni. All those were carved up by several generals after World War I, and they created modern-day nations. But we don't recognize it. We recognize Kurdistan, and we prefer to have one united Kurdistan from Iraq, Iran, Syria, Turkey. But if not, at the very least, federalism, similar to what federal system in Canada and America. Why not have a federal? Why not? Why Kurds are not allowed to speak their language? They have to teach their own language. Why they've been oppressed? And this is other things we're fighting for. And unfortunately, we hear from the administration in the U.S., forget you're a Kurd. Think you're as a Syrian and support the Syrian. And And we always tell them that most of the Syrians you're helping are no different than the regime. Same teaching, same uprising, same culture, and all of them deny our rights, and we cannot really accept that. You need to really look beyond that and find your allies, work with your allies, and the Kurds are the allies.
Now, where did you come? Where were you born, and what's your educational background?
I was born in Kamishli, Kurdistan of Syria. My family goes back at least 400 and 450 years from Ottoman Empire until that we trace that we were in Syria, that before existing of modern-day Syria. And just to bring you up, some of my family members, to this day, they made them illegal alien by the Syrian regime because they took the citizenship from them. And yet even we were there before, 400 years before creation of Syria. So I'm from the Kurds of Syria, and it's northeast of Syria. At that area, it's Mesopotamia, the area, basically most of the civilization came from there in the Fertile Crescent, that area between Euphrates and Tigris.
Now, that's where your family's from. Give us your migration from Syria to now you're in the United States, leading up an effort to help Kurds worldwide. How did that quickly, just tell us how that took place.
When I was young, my father basically realized that if I would stay in Syria, I would either be killed or be in jail. So I was young, finished my high school, and I told you need to get out because I was outspoken of the regime, against the regime. And we had, at the time, a U.S. consular from German descent and sympathizer with the Kurds, and a friend of my father, and he basically told me, go to the U.S., this is the better place, and absolutely it's the best, wonderful, the best nation on earth. Unfortunately, we have some folks today in Washington that I don't agree with them, but it's the best nation on earth.
Yeah, we have some folks, too, that don't think this is the best nation. We're trying to get them out of office,
Some of them have to be 1,600.
And one of them tonight is going to mess America up even more, and we'll deal with that tomorrow.
I fully agree. President Obama is not helping of the people of the Middle East, and he is not helping the Western nations and the Western values. In fact, anything he is doing is promoting political Islam, radical Islamists, and against Americans' allies, from the Kurds to the Jews to all the folks who promote democracy in the Middle East. And this is the sad thing, that he is using American tax dollars to support radical groups in the Middle East.
It is unbelievable, and we want to get into that in today's show, but we're going to have to do this in subsequent shows also. Right now, the guys at in the studio here have some questions for you. We're going to open that up, take some questions. Then I want to get into some of the war-fighting elements of the Peshmerga right now, talk about the role of of a couple of the other groups. But Mark, you had a question.
Yeah, a couple. You seem to have a very westernized viewpoint of the world, more so than other people we find from other parts of the Middle East. Why is that with you, and does that also translate into many of the other people who you surround yourself with? Do they also have a westernized viewpoint of the world, and where does that come from?
I think I mentioned to you, when you look at the democracy cylinder today is being, I think, on tour in America, and it's from modern-day Iran, they call it, and they say it's Iranian, it is a Kurdish. And when you look at the history of the Kurds, they had tolerance, democracy, in some form or another, and this is the way we never been radicalized, and we were converted either to Judaism, Christianity, or Islam over the years. But the Kurds always, they looked at religion as something not a primary as much as their ethnicity.
I see.
So this is the way we as a Kurd believe that the ethnicity is, the first thing say you're Kurdish.
So you're,
even our home, we call it Kurdistan, means land of the Kurds.
right. So you're Kurd first, Muslim second, and you're Muslim, correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, yes. And the second thing, when you look at the whole Middle East, you go talk to any Kurds today, and anybody, even cannot even read and write or deprived of education, you'll find those people absolutely have values. They love America. They love Western. They are not anti-Western, and they're not absolutely. Look at our Islamic religious leaders. They are, for many, many years, more than 40, 50 years, they were coming against the Syrian regime and Iraqi regime.
That makes a lot of sense.
We cannot fight people of the books. We cannot fight Jewish, Christian, because this is against the God. And they were asking them to go fight against the Jewish in Israel, and they said, absolutely, you go to hell if you do that. You cannot do that. So the Kurds, the Kurdish religious leader, they believe Jerusalem belongs to the Jews.
Okay.
It says in the Quran. It's in our book. So why do we go fight them? This is only political reason. Arab wants it for political reason. They want to Arabize anywhere in the world, including our area.
Now, also, I was in Washington, D.C. just recently, and I'm going to pull up some footage here. And it's a really strange. I didn't expect to see this. And this was
during Operation Protective Edge.
Right. And I'm going to bring up the audio on this and let you hear it just a little bit.
No Hamas, no war! No Hamas, no war! Down, down, Hamas! Down, down, Hamas! Down, down, Hamas! Down, down, Hamas! Long live Israel! Long live Israel! Long live Israel!
Now, right there, just right there, that would never, ever be ever spoken by a CARE group, a Muslim Brotherhood group here in the United States, or any other Islamic group. This is, and about, my mouth was on the floor when I was sitting here recording this. Said this is a Muslim group saying down with Hamas, pro-Israel. I was great, fantastic, Well,
it's a Kurdish group.
It's a Kurdish group.
Yeah, it's a Kurdish group standing in support of Israel during Operation Protective Edge in a rally in front of the White House.
You would never see that. And why are I just love seeing that. And do you see this a lot throughout the Kurdish community, not just in these isolated groups?
The Kurds do not have any animosity for Israel. In fact, they admire Israel. And many of my Jewish friends, they joke that, hey, you guys are lost tribes of the Kurds, of Judaism, Jews. They always joke because we have it was discovered through DNA that we have the closest genes to each other. It was interesting that I just found out the last few years. But in reality, what we see the right and wrong, and it's wrong to go oppress and kill and throw people into the sea and destroy people. This is what most the Arab cultures advocate right now.
Right.
We cannot do that. And also, even if we were to look at by God his wishes, or via the Quran or Torah or any other book out there, you cannot really go kill people. The only time you do it if you are being cornered and you have to defend yourself. Well, you cannot go just kill people the way they're doing it right now. And so they see this is wrong. We cannot accept that. Most Kurds, to this day, they always promote the idea of really coexisting, living together. And the only oasis in that region right now, beside Israel, is Kurdistan of north of Iraq. They're protecting Yazidi, Kurds, Christians, even Arabs that they're running away for security. To this day, they've been protected. And many of these folks, just to remind you, they worked one time or another with Saddam Hussein against the Kurds and slaughtered the Kurds. So
right.
we believe the best thing is you have to try to live and make the best what you at your disposal at the time.
Now, at 50 minutes after, we're starting to fight the clock here a little bit, and we got so much to talk to Dr. Abbas about, but 50 minutes after 4 o'clock. Tom Trento, your host, WSBR 740 on the dial. 1991, first Gulf War. After we left and Saddam Hussein killed 100,000 Kurds and gassed them and
Right.
everything else.
I've heard 200,000.
Yeah, no, it was horrific. Horrific what they did.
They got a little even in 2003, 2004. The Peshmerga worked with our special forces in Iraq, found Saddam Hussein, and helped turn him over to the U.S. government. And then even they found Ghassan Gul, the messenger of Osama bin Laden,
Right.
found him, which led to SEAL Team 6 on Operation Neptune's Fork. So, the Kurds have been very, very helpful, particularly those fighting forces, the Peshmerga. But Damon, you had a question regarding the Temple Mount or something?
Yes, with everything going on in Israel today, and I don't mean to take away the focus from the Kurds, and I heard you voice your support for Israel. How do you view essentially what's turned into the third Intifada in Israel now, and how do you view the Jews' rights to access the Temple Mount, and how the Jordanian Waqf has prohibited Jews from going up there to pray, and the behavior of the quote Palestinians the last month or so?
Well, I mean, if you were to look traditionally, what the Kurds view that Jerusalem, this is, again, I cannot really speak on behalf of all the Kurds, but most of the Kurds today, they view that the issue of Jerusalem, it's being a political card that Arabs using it when they want to wage war and have the Islamic support for their idea of taking over Palestine or Jerusalem.
The festering.
Now, why can't have, basically Jerusalem and still capital of the Jews, still have the area where Islamic to the Muslim, to the Christian, to the Jews, somehow administered that it's satisfactory for all. But just to take Jerusalem and uproot all the Christian or Jews from there, it's absolutely wrong. We don't support it. And the Kurds view that we need to find a way. If we love the same God, then we need to find a way to work together. We cannot let use whether it's Aqsa or anything in that region to be an element to kill each other and slaughter each other. This is something we need to, if you love God, then you try to avoid destroying people of God.
All right, now
So in our view, it's wrong. A Palestinian they listened to what Sadat did for them. What Sadat was the best Arab president. He recognized and what he got the most, and they refused. And so they keep refusing and refusing. They need to really go back and find a way and review why they're doing this. And probably you'll find a lot of the Arab nation playing with the Palestinian card as well, because they don't want a democracy in that region. So
Sounds like
in our view, they want to use Israel as a excuse, a scapegoat for their failures and in oppressing their people.
The festering wound.
That's what we have found. Dr. Abbas, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Well, they can use our website or my email or basically a phone. But the best thing, you can go on Kurdas, KURDAS.com, and they can get in touch or send me an email, my Sherkoh at gmail.com.
All right, we'll put your website up so people can see that at 54 minutes after 4 o'clock. Right now, what do you want if President Obama said, Dr. Sherkoh Abbas, what do you want? I'm ready to give you what you want. What do you want?
Well, what we want is absolutely support, military support and political support, that Syria and Iraq could never go back to the, idea of unified Syria, unified Iraq. That's something we need to find a better solution, and the better solution is now we promote the federalism for the Kurds of Syria and Iraq, have a loose confederation, and support the Kurds to fight and root out the ISIS from there, and let the Kurds vet out the people and work with the folks from that region, because they know the language, the culture, the religion of that region. And I think we can bring a lot of moderate Arab, Sunni, or Shia, or Christian, or other groups to work together. The Kurds can become an engine of democracy nucleus. They can do this, but we need the support. And the United States, that support is needed from the United States, and the United States is completely ignoring the Kurds and not helping the Kurds.
Well, when you say the United States, do you mean this administration? Do you have any friends in Congress?
We do have a lot of good friends from the Congress, and unfortunately, this administration. Maybe I need to be more specific. In the past, there are a few issues with some administration, but the best administration we had is Bush, and we love George Bush, the son. But at the bottom line, this administration here in Washington is doing everything against the interest as an American and as a Kurdish American. He's doing anything against. They're doing basically only thing they want to do is support political Islam.
The Muslim Brotherhood.
They
have six, President Obama, as you probably know very well, has 6 Muslim Brotherhood advisors in his cabinet visiting him all the time. That's where he's getting all this nonsensical stuff. And sadly, Hillary Clinton has Abedin, whose family was mobbed up in the Muslim Brotherhood. So the Kurds don't have any hope on the Democratic side of the ledger. That's for sure now.
Tom,
Mark, we got about 1 minute left.
Yeah, no.
So we need your help with any congressmen, senators from Republican or any Democrat side as well. We're very interested in really having this administration. They need to do a hearing. Why this administration recruiting and supporting radical Islamists and the Free Syrian Army? Most of them, they turn out to be ISIS supporter, and they switch alliance to ISIS. Why we keep continuing to do the same thing over by helping in supporting these groups? We need to talk to the Kurds, and we need to recognize that Syria should be loose federal region of the Kurdistan region in Syria and Iraq and Turkey and Iran as well.
Tom,
believe me, this is how you implode Iran from within.
Tom, I think we found your long-lost Muslim brother. I tell you what, everything he's saying is the exact same thing you've been saying, Tom. For how many years,
Yeah.
I mean, this is great.
Now, you're based in Washington, D.C., correct?
Yes, I'm between Michigan and Washington, D.C., bouncing between the two locations. But
you're not in Dearborn, are you?
This administration, everything they have done helped Iran. This is another thing that people don't realize. Iran has a hand in ISIS. They're using it to basically fool us, and people don't realize this.
All right, let's do this, because today was just to give our viewers and our listeners a little bit of a context as to who the Kurds are as human beings historically, the ethnicity of Kurdistan, some of the customs, some of the Western concerns, the fact that ethnicity or nationalism dominates over whether they're Christians or Muslims or Druze or whatever they may be, and that in this not existential, but this immediate and real battle between the Islamic State and their understanding of Islamic doctrine, the Kurds can be at the tip of the spear on the ground. Not they could be. They're
great fighters too.
Now.
Yeah, they're great fighters.
Dr. Abbas, we'd like for you to come back next week when the snow isn't ruining the Skype connection, and we want to have a military brief by you on the war fighting in Kobani in particular, and the elements of the Islamic State and what exactly the Peshmerga and other Kurdish fighters need to defeat the Islamic State. Can you come back next week?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for inviting me. Sorry for the telecommunication issues due to the weather, but I would be delighted. And whoever is listening, please we need the help. The Kurdish Peshmerga don't have even simple boots right now to fight ISIS, while somebody in the White House said, okay, we're helping, but he's not.
All right. Well, we will do what we can to get the word out to help. Well, Dr. Sherkoh Abbas, we will see you. We got to go right now.
Well, I'd like to take it out on the protest. Just listen to it and just take it on out. If you
Okay,
don't mind.
let's do that. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
No Hamas! No Hamas! No tyranny!
This is the
No Hamas,
Kurdish
no war!
people
No
standing
Hamas,
with
no
Americans
war!
and Israelis.
Washington, D.C. in front of the White House. Pretty cool. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hamas!